Happy New Year to everyone who isn't a YouTuber, that is, because we hate January. Why do we hate January? Or more accurately, why does January hate us? Well, the reasons I'm going to tell you, because that's what the video is about. So the typical factor you're probably aware of is money. With January, ad revenue takes a huge dip, and depending on your niche, it can crash right down to the floor and beyond. That's not quite it though, obviously money isn't everything. It's actually only one of 4 major problems with making internet videos in the month of January. And 4, it's a big number. No, it's not quite as big as 5, but it is decidedly larger than 3. And when it comes to major problems, I think 3 is already big enough. We'll start with money though, because that's the easy one. You've probably all heard from your favorite video smiths on the internet, because they'll complain at some point or another, but ad revenue in January is fairly abysmal. And the simple reason for that is advertising cycles. During November and December, most companies invest heavily into advertising for all sorts of funky events like your Black Fridays and this little niche holiday called Christmas. And they throw so much advertising cash into those months that the coffers are pretty empty for January, and they need to strategically save their resources for more advertising battles throughout the year, usually kicking into gear again around March. Because fun thing I've noticed is that ad revenue tends to almost perfectly mimic financial quarters. So the beginning of a quarter tends to be the lowest earning month of the 3, whilst the final month is generally the biggest earner. It's almost like the stock market. It goes up a bit, goes down a bit, but over time it pretty consistently rises. Until we encounter a crash, which at the very least is pretty predictable on YouTube, because barring any kind of Logan Paul doing something stupid and ruining life for the rest of us style event, this crash is always going to be in January. For most of us, that is. Definitely not all of us. But this is doubly problematic on YouTube for a reason that most people never mention, but I am going to mention it to you. But it's that YouTube ads operate on an auction-based system, so they get awarded to the highest bidders. And in December, there are some very deep pockets bidding on our channels, which to them function as glorified billboards. In January, however, no one cares. So while ad space is still being bought in a similar quantity, they get sold incredibly cheaply. And this makes a lot of sense because if they kept pumping money into advertising, who was going to be buying their products? As human beings, we're probably all incredibly broke from November, December. And because this coincides with the holidays, a lot of people aren't even getting paid again until the end of January or perhaps even February. And with current global events, a significantly higher amount of people just flat out won't be working at all. And there's this funny thing that happens when you don't work: money. It stops appearing in your bank account, which prevents you from spending it because it doesn't exist. But even with all of that in mind, it is so much worse on a psychological level, because YouTubers are coming off that sheer high that is November, December, which are by far the highest earning months of the year, and then to juxtapose that directly against January is a big shock to the system. It's not a gradual decline, it is a very sudden hit, which I imagine can be quite demotivating in a lot of cases. As I said before, it kind of depends on your niche. I know a lot of people who fear January like some sort of revenue devouring demon, but I've personally never found it to be all that bad. I mean, yeah, there's a very noticeable dip, but I guess anime content weathers January a lot better than most. Conversely, I should say that I think a lot of niches actually benefit from January as well. Like, I imagine that fitness channels in particular do very, very well, with all sorts of people making New Year's resolutions to get fit, lose weight, and all that sort of stuff. So also cooking channels and education channels for people making resolutions to acquire new skills. So it's not all bad. They probably actually see a huge boom in viewership. But speaking of, that is our second major problem with January, because remember, there's 4. But the second one is viewers. In addition to lower ad revenue, January is, statistically speaking, the lowest viewed month on YouTube. Now, I don't know if those statistics are publicly available, but that's what my partner manager has told me. So even if money is of no concern to you, you can experience a natural dip in views, which is also kind of demoralizing. And I know that's very much at odds with what I said about niche booms, but for every boom, there is an equal and opposite anti-boom in another niche. An anti-boom, also probably known as a decline. And I guess it makes sense because it's January. Surely people are busy enjoying some sort of holiday, a family time. I don't know what people do when they're not sitting in rooms watching a dude sitting in a room also. Although I'm very interested to see what this year's stats will be like, because I think there will be a lot more of that because travel is it's quite tricky right now. To make things a bit worse, this has a compound effect on revenue though. So not only are your ads being sold for significantly less money, but less viewership obviously means less ads to sell. So it's quite a vicious cycle that becomes very mentally taxing. For most creators, you're making less money, less people are watching, and therefore you are less motivated to make videos in general. And if you make less videos, even less people will be watching, resulting in even less revenue, and the cycle, it continues. However, and I feel like I'm saying this an awful lot during this video, but it gets worse. Because major factor number 3 is creator burnout. Because we're all familiar with these cycles, a lot of YouTubers put massive efforts behind what I call a November-December push. For example, this is something I did on my Grand Line Review channel. I tried to make sure that both of those months were pushing out our maximum of 4 videos per week. Because why not? Anything less than our maximum is a wasted opportunity. And personally, I also feel really bad when I only release 3 videos a week on Grand Line Review, because I know that there are thousands of people out there who are addicted to One Piece in the same way that I am, and those people need their fix. 3 times a week is not enough, because that inevitably leaves one whole 48-hour break, which is too long, and it feels like an eternity to me. And I swear, time on YouTube is dilated like a black hole. A month in the outside world is like a year inside here, which is another thing that makes the concept of taking breaks difficult even during January. Like, I can't even imagine taking a whole month off. I feel like everyone would forget about you and just move on to the next thing insanely quickly. But naturally, that makes us slightly tired when January comes around, so that plays heavily into things as well. Because what we're essentially doing is asking the exhausted YouTuber to work twice as hard in order to achieve essentially half as much. So I can certainly see why many people kind of choose to write off January as a whole, take that opportunity to rest, and then slam back into things come February. And I wish it was that simple. I really, really do. Because let's say you're comfortable enough to not be worrying about losing revenue in January. Cool. There's still a big problem with taking time off, which is our 4th factor, momentum loss. YouTube is a very vicious and unforgiving machine. It's designed to keep creators pumping out content at peak capacity all year round. And it rewards you for that consistency, but it also very much punishes you for any kind of inconsistency. And a break is a big inconsistency. Because if you take time off, then YouTube will serve your videos to another audience during that break, and rather unfortunately, that sets you back in the priority list of the algorithm. Basically, a new channel or set of recommendations will fill the gap that you've left, and when you do eventually return, it's going to be a bit of a climb to get back to where you once were. And this has ripple effects throughout the entire year. A break in January can do damage to your momentum as a growing channel that you are still feeling all the way in March and April, maybe even beyond. So in many cases, even though revenue, viewership, and perhaps even personal motivation are at all-time lows, it's still an objectively better decision to just push through it all. Keep making consistent content and maintain that steady growth. Now, on the flip side, there is one massively positive thing about January, because if you are a small to medium-sized channel, January is your golden month. Because a lot of the big dominant channels are feeling comfortable and they're taking breaks, they're relaxing on the beach and going, which means that you have an unparalleled opportunity to break through to their audiences, one which you will not have at any other time of year. You should be competing hard for January. And who knows, by the end of that year, that momentum could start to quite literally pay off in December. And that's my thinking, because I'm honestly quite competitive, more so than perhaps I should be. But there's this incredibly cynical yet somewhat optimistic statement that Winston Churchill made after World War II, which I'm sure you've all heard before, but it's never let a good crisis go to waste. And that can be applied in all sorts of horrendous ways, but a very positive way to look at it is that no crisis comes without opportunity. And with YouTube, that crisis month is January. People aren't watching as much, people aren't making as much, people are tired, people are demotivated. And that is your opportunity to really put the acceleration on your own content and take advantage of that crisis. And even the big channels that are active are still kind of stuck, because in this climate of trying to maintain steady levels of viewership, January is not going to be seen as a favorable month for risk taking in terms of video topics and formats and just doing new stuff. People are going to stick to making what they know works, because this boat is rocking violently enough as is. So again, this could be a great opportunity for smaller channels to make some riskier content and start to carve a bit of a space for themselves. And speaking of that, that's kind of what this channel is all about. Dude in a room exists to make all of the stuff that I deem far too risky for any of my other channels. I have no expectations with this channel, nor do I have any particular goals, to be honest, aside from hopefully entertaining and informing you in some way, shape, or form. But for those of you who are familiar with my flagship channel Grand Line Review, there is actually a bonus reason why January kind of sucks. And that's because One Piece specifically takes a hit during that month as well, mostly due to publication factors. There aren't that many chapters coming out in January as there are compared to other months, and One Piece as a topic is already suffering from the December break. I mean, even the anime goes on break, so overall, it's just a less relevant topic in January, which is kind of a shame because I love fictional pirates all year round. And I think that's what really helped me personally, because I have all of the burnout, all of the lower numbers, and all of the stuff. But in the end, whether I was making money or not, or in fact, whether people were watching me or not, this is still the thing that I would be focusing on and the thing I would be obsessing about. So it makes the decision not to take a break a lot easier. And on a more philosophical level, January is the contrast we need to truly appreciate December. If there was no awful month on YouTube, then there would be no great month. Everything would just be a constant state of You can't have any of the highs without experiencing the lows, otherwise those highs, they're just flat ground. Emergency announcement. Just as I finished editing this video, the Twitter gods informed me that I had won a very prestigious award. One Piece YouTuber of the Year from the Hype Hunter YT award things.
For the next award for One Piece YouTuber of the Year, of course, there are a number of great candidates that make all sorts of fantastic content, but the winner for 2021 One Piece YouTuber of the Year goes to Grand Line Review. Congratulations.
Although interestingly enough, I didn't win the Australian One Piece YouTuber of the Year. That accolade went to Joygo. So I guess I out One Piece her, but she has out Australianed me. It's alright. I'm not bitter about that at all.